Buongiorno a tutti, bentornati su una nuova live di questo canale dedicata a The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered e in questo momento ci stiamo ascoltando i contenuti dietro le quinte. In particolare ieri abbiamo ascoltato questo podcast e abbiamo fatto i livelli perduti, non proprio tutti perché quello delle fonti abbiamo fatti anche quelli e nelle prossime live intanto ci ascolteremo questi ultimi tre podcast e poi dopo i podcast procederemo con la modalità roguelike e poi andremo avanti con la storia principale che comunque già conosciamo dalla versione PS4, ma vogliamo vedere anche la versione, vogliamo giocare anche la versione PS5. Quindi intanto procediamo con il prossimo podcast che ci rimane da ascoltare, che è quello relativo alla descrizione di Ellie, che si intitola Dovrebbero aver paura di te, e la descrizione dice un'analisi del personaggio di Ellie e del suo arco narrativo con gli autori Neil Druckmann ed Ellie Gross, con la partecipazione di Troy Baker, Ashley Johnson e Shannon Woodward, della durata di 1 ora e 2 minuti, che più o meno riusciremo ad ascoltarlo tutto, e forse c'entrerà anche quello di Abby, che invece dura soltanto 49 minuti, quindi probabilmente entrambi, sia Ellie che Abby, riusciranno ad entrare in questa live che finirà intorno all'1 meno un quarto, 12 e mezza circa, quindi dobbiamo un pochino correre per riuscire a farceli entrare forse entrambi questi due, e poi nella prossima live procederemo con questo, insomma. E sbrighiamoci. Dovrebbero aver paura di te, personaggio di Ellie, facciamolo partire.
When we first meet Ellie in Jackson, she's 19. She's going out on patrols. She is a little bit more confident in who she is. She's learned how capable she is. She's learned so much from Joel, and she's absolutely a capable fighter, a hunter. She knows her strengths and her weaknesses and knows how to strategize and use those to her advantage. And she's a big contributor to the community in Jackson. Hey.
Hey.
What's up, Joel?
Vabbè, questo è tratto dall'inizio.
Folks are
Andiamo un po' avanti. Farò un po' saltare perché altrimenti non riusciamo a focalizzarci adeguatamente sulle cose importanti, però.
Diving deep into story points and talking about one of the two playable characters, Ellie. So yes, warning, we are moving into full spoiler territory here. So if you haven't finished the game yet, proceed with caution.
E vabbè, questo avvertimento ve lo do pure io, ve l'ho dato anche nelle live precedenti.
It's funny, it's in some ways they both found what they're looking for. It's more true for Joel than it is for Ellie. They found a place to settle down, to find society that values them. Joel has, in the journey of The Last of Us 1, has, like, as cliche as that sounds, learned to love again. It's like learned to accept that love comes with pain, and has brought everything that comes with love into his life. But at a cost where now his relationship with Ellie is a bit strained. Ellie can tell that, you know, something happened in that hospital that is off. And even for no other reason, that so much of her journey, and she experienced so much loss by the end of the first game. And it felt meaningless to her, because in her idea, it was like, it would all be worth it if at the end of it there could be a cure. There could be something positive that comes out of it. And the only thing that came positive out of it is she got this father figure, right? Everyone that she loves constantly, like, comes in and out of her life, except this one dude that has stuck around no matter what. So she got that. But now what does she do? So she's kind of aimless, and she doesn't know what her purpose is, and she's trying to find it. But she's got this thing that's kind of nagging away at her. I was like, what happened? What happened? And she's like, she believes she could bury it. She could suppress it, but it keeps coming back up. And that's what we see in the flashbacks. With each flashback, it comes more and more to the surface. Like, she can't help but go find out herself. It's like that trust is not quite there.
At this point, Joel and Ellie's relationship, Ellie knows that Joel lied. And not only that, he's killed the people that could have saved humanity. And that weighs on her. And also, at this point, she hasn't met anybody else that's immune, or at least they haven't told her. So she also carries the weight of knowing that her death could have saved people. And knowing something that huge could have been your contribution to the world. I mean, how would you even find from her? And
Vabbè, mettiamo un po' avanti perché questo un po' ce lo immaginiamo.
Is one that was a hard scene to write, and it was a hard scene to
Io sono più interessata a vedere come hanno concepito il personaggio di Ellie nella parte 2, se un po' la giustificano oppure se la considerano soltanto soltanto merce, carne da macello, insomma.
It was tragic, but it felt, I think, as you mentioned, to me, Joel was living just to die. Like, Joel's life was going to catch up with him. Whether it's when he was a smuggler with Tess, or, even I could see it have been a conflict in Jackson. Like, the character of Joel, at some point, his actions were going to have repercussions. And so witnessing it in that way, it was something where, I literally knew it was coming. But in those moments, you see, and I think the actor's performances, the realization of, I'm Joel and this is my brother Tommy, or I forget, maybe I'm Tommy and it's my brother Joel. And it's like, oh, hey, I'm Tom. Clear, it's emotion that in which you witness that. And I feel like I was very much in Ellie's shoes in that moment. So even though I knew it was coming, it still landed like a bag of bricks.
Yeah, it's funny, again, you think about iteration and how important iteration is to building something that's good, because like so many early versions, Ellie was not there. Ellie just saw the aftermath, and Tommy had to tell her everything that happened. And then, again, I don't remember whose idea it was or how it came to be, but it was like someone said, oh, Ellie should be there. It was like, oh, that became, oh, of course, this whole thing is predicated on her feeling the most intense hatred. She's got to see the act.
I don't want to do that.
Student, and then we get to the moment, and we kind of move forward, and I just stopped. And I was like, man, I need a second, because it was literally as if someone just told me that someone very near to me had just died, and I realized that I hadn't grieved. It's almost like finding out someone is terminally ill, and you go through that process, and you're like, okay, we know this is going to happen, and we prepare for it, and you go from maybe
kill this human being, who then, the only reason she's allowed to accomplish that singular focus is because he saves her.
Dude, okay, this is why this game, and I'm not saying the first one or the second one, I'm saying this experience. That's why it's part 1 and part 2. It's not a sequel. This thing is the entirety of the story that we're telling. Moments and conversations and characters echo from part 1 into part 2. And it was even one of the earliest lines that you ever heard from part 1 in the trailer, which was Earl Brown. When you get to Bill's town, and there's this conversation with Bill, and he goes, once upon a time I had someone that I cared about, and I found that thing is only good for one thing, that's to get you killed. This is what happens when you care. And it's the same thing of why it is calling back to Sarah without him having to reference Sarah.
E questa è la cosa tragica, che aspetta, non posso mettere in pausa.
Dependent upon the context of our own experiences. For Joel, sacrificing her is sacrificing humanity. So, to not care about someone is just as bad as being a murderer. Now he understands. Now he is working. He's trying to do everything he can to make penance for the wrong that he did to Ellie. And that man is making his bed up. He's doing the dishes. He's taking out the garbage. He's doing everything he can. I'll save this person's life if it makes me right with her. I'd rather make a wrong decision, but show that I've grown. And that's why he's like, it's you. You're the one that takes me down. It's just, it was this moment of recognition.
A game that is the most devastating, of course, because we are losing a character that we all deeply care about. But when we started shooting that scene, it was awful. Like, I didn't want it to be happening, and I know that that was the story, but it was a tough week on the job. And it's hard to describe because I feel like that particular week of filming, I was up and I'm gonna go try to do something if you don't hold me down. And I think that was incredibly helpful because you can hear the strain. Boy, that was a tough day.
They pulled me through that scene.
I always knew like we wanted to find the line and then just go a little past that line because it needs to feel really uncomfortable, cruel, to get the kinds of feelings we're after for this experience. This was such a long shoot. It was the longest cinematic shoot for any game we've done. And right, because obviously Sarah's life and death had so much impact on Joel and who he is. And we had, like, once he got his head bashed in, his last word was, like, Sarah. And we were just thinking, like, his mind is, like, right, it's not quite operating in the same way. You got neurons firing, and you just try to make sure we have enough time to try it.
Important place in her life, possibly the most important, and he was taken away from her. Taken away before their relationship was fully able to heal.
Vabbè, dai.
Again, I would do it all over again. I love this game so much, and I love this character, and after 8 years of playing this character, I'll go anywhere with her.
The tape of the rocket launch. All was that. I'd be like, what is this, a Hallmark movie? You know, like, but
Why don't you tell me what? And because we have to be able to capture those movements, and obviously going into the capsule, you would never be able to do that now, right? So there's this beauty that and fortune that this.
How's it smell in there?
Like space. And dust.
The reason why it feels so real is because that's a genuine desire of Ashley. I remember we were flying over, we were flying from LA to London for a press event for the first game. And it was during the Perseid meteor shower. And for Ashley, in the same way that Neil giving me the opportunity to sing and play guitar.
Close your eyes.
Where Ellie was frustrated and mad and hurt and angry, and that scene when they get into the capsule, it didn't have any of that, and it was just a brief respite in moment. And it was that day, I just remember both of us were just so happy to be doing that scene, but also we were sad because it's kind of a sad scene, and especially when you're going back, when you see that scene in a flashback, and it's
the idea with The Last of Us, with the first and the second game, is we wanted to explore these pockets of humanity and how they're surviving, right? There are the hunters, there are the quarantine zones that are very oppressive, there's Bill living out on his own, there's the WLF, that's this very militaristic force that thinks they're going to change the world one bit at a time, and yet they can't finish taking over the city. There's the Seraphites that think they're following their prophet's order, God's order, to like restore some balance to the world. And then there's a place like Jackson, which is like doing their best to create some semblance of the humanity we had, the society we had before the outbreak. So that, right, they have rules, they trade, maybe it's a bit more of like a socialistic system than a capitalist one. They don't really have a currency. But they take care of each other, they watch movies, they have festivals where they dance. Oh, by the way, before I forget, I'm going to go on a tangent. Like, one of the things, you could play with them, you could go to like the back of the church and find these like two teenagers making out. It was all pretty done. Like a lot of it wasn't super polished. It was like 80%. And we just felt for pacing purposes, it just slowed things down too much at that point of the story. And it was heartbreaking to cut all that out. But that's one of those like tough decisions you have to make sometimes. I don't know if brave is the right word. Maybe with Ellie it's more reckless. But they are very valuable members of this society, of this town. So for the story, it was important to take some time to establish, okay, here's what's at stake. Here's what they stand to lose. Here's what Ellie stands to lose, most importantly, by going on this journey. That's why we wanted to like kind of slow things down in the beginning.
Okay, I have a very... Maybe they're staring at you.
But I really do love the moment now. And yeah, you know, she's got this best friend who she believes is straight, and she's dancing with her, and she's insecure, like, is Dina flirting with me, or is this just Dina? And nobody, not even Jesse, is like giving it a second thought, because this is just her scrappy best friend dancing with her and being nervous and sheepish. And meanwhile, you've got Ellie, who has Dina wrapped around her, and she's like afraid she's going to give herself away, you know? And like, we have such incredible animators who like focused on pupil dilation and blushing and like sweat and like, how do you show them?
And we became friends, and we were at a party one night, and I asked her what she was doing over our summer break, and she was like, oh, I'm actually freelancing at this video game company. And I was like, oh, I mean, what video game company? Because I play a lot of games. Eventually, I think
Vabbè, qua parla di se stesso.
then the first game is that it feels like it elevates the concept of a novel with a fourth dimension, right? Which is that
Loved as much as this game. I wanted to do right by it. But at the end of the day, I wasn't alone, because also was surrounded by other incredible actors that I got to work with. Shannon being one of them, which most of my scenes I got to shoot with Shannon. And she's one of my favorite actors I've ever worked with. And for me, my favorite actors to work opposite of let us free. And Shannon and I trusted each other implicitly.
What you wanted to convey, and we can talk about all of the relationships, not just Dina and Ellie as like a queer couple, but also Mel and Owen and Abby. But what it's like writing these characters and writing love that feels authentic, but again, in a time of, you know, they're not going to college and then grad school and then getting married, and kind of what going steady maybe does or does not look like, and kind of how you write an honest relationship in a world that hopefully we never know.
If Ellie and Dina are best friends, and Ellie is ostensibly out to everybody but Joel, though that's only a reveal at the end. In the opening, she is actually out to Joel. But if that's not her issue, it's just about like, I don't want to ruin my friendship. I remember like Neil and I went through pages and pages and pages of and how Dina as a friend means so much to her, and she didn't want to ruin that. And I think, gosh, that's just, you know, who doesn't have a friend who's been in that situation? Who can't see that? So like, okay, if you're a straight dude somewhere else, like, yeah, but you know, compared to this fucking flirtatious girl. And that also gave us a chance to, like, make her feel really multifaceted, to make her feel not impervious, and to give stakes. It's like, this is the thing she's fighting for. She's fighting through herself to get to Dina in the same way she will fight through herself to let Abby go.
Can I ask you a question?
I don't know.
I give it a 6. You make me want.
Just so simple and pure and beautiful. How much they love each other, and it's beautiful and it's sexy and.
Ow! Well, that's quite a grip you got there.
Hey, Tommy.
There.
And maybe even what it was in the game in that moment. One of my favorite moments in the game is when he taps his finger. It's kind of.
I mean, it's been past a year. Yeah, Tommy's healed. That scene just shows how much Tommy is hurting. I mean, I think hurt that they're all experiencing is by killing the person who did it.
Reckon's easy.
He's in a bad place. He's in a really bad place. And family and an entire community of people.
Caring for her girlfriend who is deeply grieving. And I think, you know, Dina suspects that she might be pregnant, but I think she can do about it. And that's really hard for her to let her go, and especially being someone, I think, to some extent, just get through the bargaining stages of it, but then also just realizing that she has to accept that if this person is going to give in to this change.
And it immediately was, I think we were thinking about that scene more than anything else. And the temptation is to think about the death scene, and that's defy that moment. This will baptize and make holy that moment. Make it worth it.
It's not bad.
I had Seth under control.
And that's as close as they'll ever get. And to me, that becomes, that retroactively is all of the moments that could have been. And if I relegated that and did that before I had experienced the way that it was meant to be experienced, that moment is meant and was carefully curated and crafted over years by hundreds of people, lovingly, painfully, skillfully. And for me to go, yeah, I've already done
E
it.
via gli avverbi.
I have no idea what that girl's intentions are, but I do know that she would be lucky if somehow the Lord gave me a second chance at that moment.
Put the knife down. It's just this continued escalation toward destruction, and everybody loses, right? And
Book Media, and it's hosted by me, Christian Spicer, and written by Brigham Mosley. Our executive producers are Aaliyah Tabak.
Vabbè, questo spaccato su Ellie mi ha in parte intristito, però diciamo che la tristezza è relativa al fatto che secondo me gli autori nella loro logica ce l'hanno, o comunque nel messaggio che vogliono Ellie, che non espressamente con Ellie, ma entrambi i personaggi non hanno fatto niente di male e hanno fatto la cosa giusta per essere considerati dei bravi esseri umani, soprattutto Joel nei confronti di Ellie. E poi Ellie, anche Ellie farà, a mio modo di vedere, la cosa giusta per essere considerato un bravo essere umano, nel fatto di comunque dispiacersi per essere sopravvissuta nel momento in cui capisce la verità e la bugia di Joel. Non mi è piaciuto questo modo di avercela con Joel all'inizio di questo podcast, in cui hanno detto è stata una tragedia che sia morto Joel, ma in fondo se l'è cercata, in fondo era già scritto, ma è già scritto da chi? Da te, perché volevi che Joel la pagasse. Però non mi è piaciuta questa violenza nemmeno troppo implicita nei confronti di Joel, che noi avevamo imparato ad amare nel primo gioco, quindi comunque non mi è piaciuto questo spaccato. Vediamo se per converso adesso nell'altro podcast prenderanno le difese di Abby, del partito di Abby a spada tratta, perché qua sembra in questo momento di fare politica più che di videogiocare, voglio dire. Però lo ascoltiamo velocemente anche quello di Abby e poi quello che riguarda la parte finale del gioco, che è relativo poi alla ricezione della parte finale del gioco da parte del pubblico. Quindi andiamo velocemente perché sono contenuti pesanti questi di The Last of Us parte 2, quindi diciamo
The concept was always like, can we get you to feel hate and maybe even betrayed by this character?
Abs. Holy fuck. We did good back there.
In her hunt for members of the WLF. Today,
for the game actually was, you played with Abby for a long time, and in fact, she like joined Jackson. That's early with the empathy you felt for the character, and you think you understand this character, and then reveal, no, you don't. This character is a vision of what this game is, what we set out to do, which is make you feel.
Voice work for Left Behind, the DLC, and I worked with Neil on that. And he doesn't remember this conversation. I've had this talk with him before. Until the auditions came up, and I went in and I auditioned for Abby, even though he had told me that he thought I would be good for it.
2017, the E3 trailer that was like, all you, but mumbles the word about
my ego, just because you work so hard on something for so long and you just want to be able to share it. You just want. I feel like if at the end of the game, if you're not left conflicted,
that's exciting. And then to do it in ways that feel morally gray, right? Like Abby, she's deeply flawed. She didn't get
Miller.
the fact that Joel and Tommy saved her life kind of wrecked Abby in a way that she otherwise maybe wouldn't have been if her plan, air quote, went according to plan. And let's say they infiltrated the base as she just
fulfilled afterwards.
Without destroying the host. The host.
Wonderful. Both the performances of the characters in game out, and not just talking around it, but letting us see it as well.
Here we could show it off. But again, speaking the theme of like the cycle of violence, once the idea came to be, it was like, what if it was someone related to the doctor of the first girl? You know, doctors take this vow of like being ethical, and here's someone that's going to break that to try to save millions.
To extricate the parasite without eliminating the host.
I don't care, let's just kill her. It's like, no, he really struggled with it, and Mark.
Do it.
Say she's going to go.
Or like colder, right? If only you were.
I think both are trying to do a similar thing, just from different camps, right? So the Seraphites or the Scars, they, by the time Ellie arrives in Seattle, but on a more like civil military angle. Continued escalation toward destruction, and everybody loses, right? And
I might not quite have the right word here, but at what point do you think you earn players liking Abby?
If we're talking structurally, her inciting incident is really hooking up with the kids. And then her end of Act 1 sort of heeding the call is collecting the kids and including them and bringing them to the aquarium for safety. So in my mind, that is her first truly selfless act in the game, and thus the first time maybe a lot of players will feel like she deserves consideration. You know, these kids would be dead without her. So there's a little bit of a life for a life there.
I feel like it leads to such a beautifully tragic moment with Abby. She goes through so much to save Yara. Like, it's such a big part of her 3 days, is that visit to the hospital and potentially Ground Zero, or at least Seattle Ground Zero.
Yeah, going to the hospital was something we had really early on and has stayed pretty consistent throughout. It was very much like, we need time for you to fall in love with this kid, because this kid is responsible for so many of these actions, inadvertently largely, but sometimes intentionally. You want to understand why he's doing it. You want to care for him. Like, again, so much of this game is making judgments based on just bullet points about a person, and then coming to understand the larger picture. It's like, okay, this kid ran away from his extreme religious background, but because he shaved his head, and
opportunity to grow and to like have such a raw, vulnerable, sensitive but strong character to play. It's just been such a learning experience. Kids growing up nowadays in like war-torn countries, like you don't have time to like be a kid when you're running from, you know, soldiers and trying to.
Do you know every scar?
Growing up in that kind of environment, I mean, Lev becomes super mature and like grown up he is.
I'd love to get your take on kind of what that relationship between Lev and Abby is like, and kind of how that evolved over the course of the game.
Yeah, I think very much in the sense that Lev and Abby balance each other out. It's kind of reminiscent of Ellie and Joel's relationship, you know, of this like hardened grizzly warrior character and then like a more innocent but still hardy, you know, still badass younger character coming in and kind of changing their perspective on life and like helping them be more hopeful and optimistic. And then on the other side, it's like the older character helps the younger character grow up and like protect themselves better and see the world in different perspectives. And I really love that growth, that character arc for polarities enough to fight together and to have each other's backs.
We did it.
Their beliefs, and it very much is a I wouldn't go as far to say, well, I will go as far to say a religious situation. He just has to be true to himself, and so he, you know, shaves off all of his hair, and it actually is a really resist of faith, which is something that I went through as well, being like, is everything that I was raised to believe wrong? Like, now what does this mean if the people that I loved and cared about the most are now turned against me because of me just trying to be happy and just, you know, trying to be true to myself? So I think Lev does really struggle with that internally and eventually comes to a place of realizing that he has to, you know, put himself first and his loved ones first. And when he tries to go back for his mother, you know, it doesn't go well.
Just try talking.
And, you know, there's a scene in the aquarium when Abby and Yara are looking for Lev, where Abby is showing, or Yara lingers on a map of the west coast of the United States.
Where is Santa Barbara?
The world is, you know, she has no concept that there's so much out there, that Abby has traveled so far. And there's something very interesting to that insular, isolated life. So whereas the WLF didn't want to single out anybody. So the easiest tack, I think, for us was to create a religion, and to create a religion that felt very much of this world, just in terms of how religion can evolve and change as generations move through it, and how the original intentions of somebody, you know, if like everybody grows.
Trying to explore the state of the world, we became intrigued. It was like a sort of homage to horror movies and horror games like Resident Evil. Okay, that's our Resident Evil moment. That's going to do this.
Why then? Why was it important, or why did it feel important to have that moment of this closed off?
Go outside their comfort zone to get it. So if you think about, like, Abby at that point had decided that she needs to save these kids no matter what. Like, this is her redemption. She has made this. Now we're trying to get into height, and Abby's fear of height, and she has to overcome that.
Try not to look down.
Will and what she's willing to put on the line to save these kids. Everything's going to be okay.
Piece of shit. You always have been. You always will be. And I felt like that
is because Abby, at that point, has the self-loathing. She already had the recognition that, oh God, I am pretty fucking shitty. So to have somebody else call you out on it, especially when you've made the realization and maybe you're trying and nobody else is seeing it yet.
Because Owen also tries to connect with her in the idea that you're allowed to be happy. We're allowed to be happy.
Come to Santa Barbara, right?
I can't.
Why?
You know why.
We can figure this out.
It's too late.
No, it isn't. Look, I know it's a fucking mess. I know.
Kind of lesson.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't she be happy?
Because she doesn't deserve it. You know, that's like, he can say you're allowed to be happy, but after the sins committed, I don't think she thinks she can do that.
Vabbè, fino a questo momento non ha commesso nessun peccato, perché quando c'è questa scena Joel è ancora vivo. A mio modo di vedere l'unico peccato di Abby è aver ucciso Joel così brutalmente. Però quando c'è la scena dell'acquario e Owen le dice salta l'addestramento e stai con me, Joel è ancora vivo.
When that's taken away, I think her hope died. you know? And I don't think she fully understands what even that means anymore. If it's untreated. And it's a very serious topic of conversation. And, you know, I don't ever want to compare acting to people going through these actually traumatic events in life, because that's not fair. But I still think this was a very important story to tell, and also exploring and researching and seeing how I can sort of properly convey those emotions. And you know, I am someone who suffers from panic attacks, and I don't have PTSD, but I definitely have had some moments in my life that many people would consider traumatic. Something as a panic attack is no joke, and it's very awful, and you feel like you're going to die in that moment, and it's I feel like I've never really talked this out with someone that's not my therapist, so it's kind of it's a tough conversation, but I feel like it's also a tough conversation because it's not something that people talk about a lot, and there's still this sort of weirdness about talking about mental health, and I feel like there is this viewpoint that we have around to talk about. Even I still don't know how to talk about it. Clearly, I'm struggling through this, but I don't want to have that anymore. And I think if we sort of have these issues talked about in entertainment, in video games, in movies, and sort of make them more
Or just sort of Captain Marvel perfect and impervious to the hardships around them and can take a punch and keep on kicking. But I was always inspired by Ellie that, like, life is really hard and life continues to knock the shit out of her, and she keeps picking herself back up. And you see her even at the end of this game.
That. But then also let it go when you need to be a decent human being.
And then some of it sticks with you. That can turn that switch off in themselves and just move like a machine. Realize that you're acting, you know? You create those emotions in yourself, and then they're just there. And you just kind of have to deal with it until they find...
Walking through the corridor.
Meditated, right? That's, everything else is about survival. To sit back and know that they're just gonna suffer, that's something different. Be human after everything that just happened with Owen. I think that moment of going, I can't, realizes to think like, this is on Joel, this is on Owen for, you know, getting Mel pregnant, this is on Ellie for coming back after we let her live, how dare she? And then finally coming to the reality of, this is on me. This is based on my actions. I'm the one that set this in motion. And finding a peace with that, if there can be. I think Lev certainly helps her see a possibility that she can forgive herself and find redemption in whatever way she can. And that's, you know, one of the reasons it's so important, he's so important to her, is I can find redemption through keeping this kid alive.
She's gone. Oh my God, she's gone.
I'm on the official on design and music.
Beh, che dire, secondo me la visione degli autori ha soltanto, perché riescono ad avere pietà soltanto per i bambini. Cioè, nel primo The Last of Us avevano pietà per Ellie, infatti l'hanno fatta salvare perché Ellie era una bambina. Nel secondo The Last of Us io mi aspettavo che sta sbagliando, sta esagerando, e mi aspettavo che quantomeno il partito di Abby fosse da loro un po' più compreso, mentre invece la mia sensazione è stata che il ritratto che hanno tracciato di Abby è stato ancora più impietoso di quello che hanno tracciato per Joel e per Ellie, perché sembra come se nemmeno il partito di Abby, chiamiamolo così, possa trovare un facile accoglimento ai loro occhi. Cioè, se non nel momento in cui entra in gioco Lev, che è un bambino, e quindi diciamo in questo caso si conferma la mia sensazione che loro hanno pietà soltanto per i bambini, soltanto attraverso i bambini si può trovare la redenzione. Mi sembra una visione in parte condivisibile, ma in parte un po' esagerata, perché è vero che dobbiamo avere tutti una grande considerazione del mondo dei bambini, però non è che se uno non ha un bambino non lo puoi comprendere, cioè nel senso, perché mi stai dicendo che cioè, addirittura mi ha fatto quasi male, da non fan di Abby, mi ha fatto quasi male sentire dire che ai loro occhi il personaggio di Abby non meritasse di essere felice. ehm, e che quindi l'amore di Owen le fosse precluso perché lei non meritava di essere felice, e questa frase è stata detta in riferimento ad una scena in cui, a mio modo di vedere, come ho detto anche poco fa sul momento, a mio modo di vedere in quel momento la povera Abby non aveva ancora commesso nessun peccato, perché non aveva ancora ucciso Joel brutalmente, anzi in quel momento era una povera vittima che aveva perso il padre, Abby, eppure lei è stata giudicata come una persona che non meritava di essere felice, anche qualora non aveva ancora commesso nessun peccato, che poi commetterà, uccidendo comunque Joel in quel modo così brutale, però ancora non aveva commesso nessun peccato, e tu già me la stai giudicando come una persona che non meritava addirittura l'amore di una persona, una cosa abbastanza violenta nei confronti di Abby. Quindi è una cosa che un po' mi destabilizza, perché comunque non mi puoi dire che gli adulti non meritino nemmeno un po' di pietà anche nei loro errori, che siano già commessi oppure futuribili. Cioè, questa cosa di strumentalizzare i bambini fino all'estremo, che viene fatto un po' anche nella serie televisiva, perché nella serie televisiva a un certo punto, quando compaiono Sam e suo fratello, che non mi ricordo come si chiama, il fratello di Sam, a un certo punto vedi che si contrappone l'idea di proteggere Ellie in quanto bambina con l'idea di proteggere Sam in quanto bambino, e quindi, o comunque si crea questa guerra tra bambini, nel senso, dice io ho più diritto di proteggere il mio fratello perché è malato, invece la tua non è malata, cioè insomma, questa guerra di tutti contro di tutti, con al centro i bambini usati come scusa per dire no, ma io proteggo il bambino, e poi in realtà non proteggi nessuno e non hai pietà di nessuno, né dei bambini né degli adulti, perché, cioè, perché nel primo avevi pietà di Ellie e l'hai protetta, poi nel secondo, quando Ellie è cresciuta, dice no, ormai sei cresciuta, non sei più innocente e quindi ti possiamo anche uccidere, ti mettiamo la storia di Abby come controparte, con il suo bambino al seguito, cioè, ma anche lì gli stessi Abby e Lev tu sai che prima o poi, se la storia continua, possibilmente troveranno anche loro una loro controparte, una catena di odio e di strumentalizzazione che così non si ferma. Quindi non lo so, mi stanno facendo male questi podcast. Andiamo a vedere la ricezione del pubblico della parte finale della parte 2, che si intitola Rifarei lo stesso. Vediamo. Vediamo come si giustificano.
I cling on to this Robert McKee quote, which is, people often ask,
Yes, you will.
Cars into your ear.
journey for me was, and I'm like, let's just go down this road because something is, but beneath all that, I believe that Ellie is a good person and wants to do the right thing. Now, why she does it, that's maybe like, I don't want to get too much into that because that is a little bit open to interpretation, but she doesn't kill Abby, and in not killing her, she saves her humanity. So she might have lost everything, but she saved probably the most important thing for her.
Why does Abby think Ellie stopped?
In that moment, in the final moment.
Mm-hmm.
I
Does she
mean,
not care?
she didn't give a fuck. She didn't give a fuck. Just don't stop killing me, and I'm gonna run. I'm done. I'm fucking done. You know, that rage is gone. It doesn't do anything. It's pretty amazing to get to that place, I think, after everything that they've been through. It sucks that you had to go through all of it to find that place, and hopefully Ellie will find that too.
She knows she made the right choice, at least, in choosing to stop the hate and the decision to keep hurting people. Does she have a purpose or know what that is yet? No. I don't think she knows what that is yet. And I think that is forever going to be her journey to try to find that now. And of course, I am a little bit of a pessimist, so I'm always like, no, there's no hope, there's no hope. Let's go, let's hear it.
What if her purpose was saving humanity? It's just now much smaller. She saves her own, and now as a microcosm of those she interacts with, she can speak to personally the importance of it and what it means to...
She goes from here, I mean, I don't know, but I hope she realizes that. But I think that is a very beautiful way to look at it.
We're making two different games that for months we would just be with one set of cast members. And I'm there with, like, you know, Laura's taking the charge, and a lot of it is Abby and World. And then all of a sudden when we shot the Abby Ellie scenes, like, it was so exciting. It was so exciting to finally see these characters work out in this moment. That was exciting in a horrific sort of way, but exciting nonetheless.
I mean this in jest, but also seriously. What was it like to beat up your friend for so long? Because you were going at it.
Yeah, that last scene was, man, throwing yourself into sort of trying to be, it was hard, but we did it. And we just,
I think what made it work so well, we were able to go further with it because of the relationship that we have.
What was your...
Feel this, like, anticipation of experiencing it. And we've been, you know, texting back and forth and just being able to see what she did on days when I didn't get to see it has been so amazing. And I was like, thank you.
Okay, I feel like there was a big turn for me. When we find the flip side of that scene, and it's just on Abby, I think she realizes quicker than Ellie. It's true. I mean, they only killed Joel, but Ellie and her pain, how is she any better with the choices that she made? We always try to justify when it's our side of the story. I mean, we all do it. We feel like it's the right thing to do when we've been wronged and justice needs to be served. But when does that cycle end? I feel like that's the whole point of the video game. It doesn't end. Each person feels so justified in their actions and the things that they do, and because we have a whole other video game of these characters that we love, and they're tough questions. I mean, even when I got to the end of the game, when you're walking down to the beach in Santa Barbara, I put down my controller, and even though I knew it was going to happen, I kept saying, no, I don't want to do that.
Potentially a shitty question, but I think there could be fun in the conversation.
Please.
Why the game couldn't have ended with Ellie and Potato sitting on the tractor?
Oh, man.
Why can't that be the end of this game?
You know, right of that, it's like PTSD, trauma, you know, that's not a choice, and it certainly hits people at different volumes. And it doesn't talk about this cyclical nature of violence. These girls aren't...
About the tattoo, right? I mean, I've seen in real life people...
That the moth is from the fret of the guitar that Joel gave, in a way, up until this point. And she first covered it in a very painful act of covering it with the gift from Joel of the guitar really meant something to her. And she wanted to get a tattoo over the bite mark, over the...
A new meaning for something based on the events of the story. So the moth, again, outside the story, the moth can mean death, and it has all these other meanings that I was much less interested in the world, and here's this insect that's pretty close to it. And then as we kept working on the story, it just took on greater and greater meaning to, well, one, it started to symbolize Ellie because it's such a prominent feature of her character design. And then we had this, again, so many things are just lucky happenstance of, heard that guitar, now that moth has...
I know at least in shooting those scenes, you know, because all of that last bit is mocap. Hope for any of us is hoping that in these situations that we put our...
And it's Catalina.
It is Catalina.
And that feels like...
We talked about showing it as like the guitar, and then like when you press start, the camera will pull out, you see Joel polishing the guitar, and I felt, I mean, like the idea of starting on the boat, and then I was like, oh, that's kind of exciting. Like there's this ominous image that we connected to, and there's so much like randomness to life that Joel didn't know taking that action at the hospital will lead to his eventual demise, but it did. And likewise, it felt like kind of cool to just present it with the menu and see if people pick up on it.
The title screen is an indication of hope, right? It's Lev and Abby. Maybe they've arrived, you know, without, in the true Naughty Dog way of not spelling it out, you know, maybe they've...
I'm going to do it a disservice by calling it an open-ended ending, but, you know, leaving room for interpretation in your professional writing experience, but also in the media you consume.
You have no idea, but you know that she is changed, right? So that her new stasis is a changed, more wizened, wiser.
We had some people that finished the game for the first time and said really kind of like wonderful things about it and how it moved them, and it's like it feels like this really positive moment, and there's this anticipation of everyone wanting hope. To answer your question, is like knowing that things are going to be okay. They might not be ideal, but they're going to be okay. And
that hope in the game, is it kind of the same thing that characters are looking for and trying, or perhaps maybe trying to find those
happens to you?
Guess when?
I mean, that's kind of the interesting thing is like, I think stories and maybe traditional happen, hopefully not the nuclear holocaust part, but countries rise and fall, groups rise and fall, and we just wanted to share. Ellie's going to go off on her own. Is she going to be okay? Is she going to find happiness? Is she going to go back to Dina? I don't know. That's kind of like the thing with life. It's like all you know is what happened.
Beh, se ce lo dice adesso non fai la parte 3, quindi non ce lo dice, andiamo avanti.
And really regained her trust, regained that warmth, regained that intimacy and friendship and happiness.
When and how it happened, but it feels very real for their truth, but it doesn't necessarily have to be the... What do you want people to be left with?
I guess the biggest hope is the one I've had all along, which is I hope it sticks with them. I hope that it was challenging in some part and interestingly, and I know they hurt people on the team so much that when we found out, and it really kind of calmed me down, and to say it's like, okay, it happened, and just to come to acceptance of that, and that just helped me kind of really forget about the person that did that. It was like, oh man, if someone else can have that.
It's funny because like all these questions that you've been asking, and I
short wick, and everybody just wants to feel.
Is for those that we love.
Another human being, and connection with something, and that's the only thing that's kind of worth living for right now.
I don't know if I'm going to have a succinct answer. It's funny because it's something like, I'm sure for marketing we wrote love and all the facets around it, meaning the.
So now the Lord gave me.
Listening to the show. Tell your friends, your family, and includes Charlie Yater, Keith Reynolds.
Va bene, quest'ultimo podcast praticamente l'ho saltato quasi tutto, mi è sembrato un po' più retorico degli altri, un po', diciamo, erano impossibilitati ad esprimersi più di tanto perché si sono limitati a girarci un po' intorno, comunque. Brrr. E adesso abbiamo finito la parte dietro le quinte. Vediamo che ore sono perché non so quanto tempo abbiamo. Sono le 12:07. Però abbiamo circa un'oretta, quindi possiamo sicuramente iniziare. Qua c'è una parte di commento. Attiva il commento o l'audio descrittivo durante i filmati. Cosa sarebbe questo? Commento del regista, descrizioni filmati. Allora, il commento del regista è bloccato. Attiva il commento del regista durante i filmati con i contributi di Neil Druckmann, Eli Gross, Ashley Johnson, Laura Bailey, Troy Baker e Shannon Woodward. Disponibile solo nella storia principale con audio in inglese. Io non so se mi voglio fare se lo voglio attivare comunque l'audio. Aspetta, però se per adesso è bloccato, significa che è bloccato perché in questa versione del gioco non abbiamo ancora completato un'intera partita, quindi significa che loro ti danno la possibilità di completarti la storia principale per come è stata concepita senza i filmati che intervengono. Cioè senza i commenti che intervengono, e dopo di aver finito la prima partita poi si sblocca la possibilità di avere i commenti mentre giochi. Descrizione filmati, attiva la descrizione audio che fornisce informazioni sui principali elementi visivi della scena durante i filmati. Beh, io ne faccio a meno sinceramente. Da un lato vorrei, però dall'altro non lo so, possiamo attivarlo per provare, poi se ci infastidisce lo togliamo. Intanto metto sì, poi si vede. Quindi qua abbiamo finito e possiamo andare a provare la modalità senza ritorno, dove sicuramente morirò in maniera impietosa, però possiamo provare sicuramente anche solo per vedere com'è. Proviamo e poi dalle live successive ci dedichiamo solo alla storia principale. Quindi andiamo su senza ritorno. Senza ritorno, questa modalità include livelli generati casualmente con nemici e personaggi tratti dalla storia principale. Purtroppo e presuppone una perfetta conoscenza delle meccaniche di movimento e combattimento. Oddio, io il gioco l'ho fatto tante volte, ma ora sono passati mesi dall'ultima volta che ci ho giocato, e quindi le meccaniche di gioco potrebbero sfuggirmi sulle prime, però più o meno sono in grado di provare quantomeno, e quindi proviamo. Allora, senza ritorno. Senza ritorno è una modalità di sopravvivenza in stile roguelike. Affronterai una serie di scontri generati casualmente in una battaglia finale contro un boss. In senza ritorno la morte è permanente, le armi, gli oggetti potenziamenti acquisiti si ripristinano dopo la conclusione. Per ogni partita viene generata casualmente una nuova mappa. Vabbè, vediamo come va, insomma. Nuova partita, sfida, classifica e tutorial. Vabbè, nuova partita. Partita standard, partita personalizzata e partita giornaliera. Queste sono bloccate, quindi partita standard. Avvia una nuova partita di senza ritorno. Affronterai una serie di scontri generati casualmente e una battaglia finale contro un boss. La morte è permanente, le armi, gli oggetti e i potenziamenti acquisiti si ripristinano dopo la conclusione. Per ogni partita viene generata casualmente una nuova mappa. Vabbè, abbiamo capito. Partita standard. Possiamo mettere molto facile, per favore, mettiamo molto facile. Ok. Meno impegnativi, moltiplicatore punteggio ad 1 per. Seleziona personaggio, è possibile sbloccare nuovi personaggi completando le sfide, vabbè. Ellie, Dina, Jess, Tommy, Joel, Abby, Lev, Yara, Mel e Manny. Però sono tutti bloccati tranne Ellie per adesso. Sfida, completa 2 scontri con Ellie, sbloccaggi personaggio Dina. Inventario, una 9 mm e una Molotov. Tratti, integratori, formula Molotov, vabbè. Skin, puoi cambiare la skin? Vediamo come ti puoi vestire. Tutte bloccate, vabbè. Vabbè, avvia partita perché tanto qua sono tutte cose bloccate, quindi vediamo come moriamo. Seleziona. Allora, qua ti mette i comandi, ce li ripassiamo un po' per ricordarci che, per esempio, X è salta, arrampicate, mirino, in fase di mirina. Vabbè, comunque, diciamo che poi li scopriremo strada facendo. Rifugio, dopo ogni combattimento farà ritorno a questo rifugio, completa gli scontri per ottenere ricompense, quindi usa il banco da lavoro e accedi all'emporio per potenziare il tuo personaggio. Lavagna tattica, usa la lavagna tattica per selezionare il tuo prossimo scontro e farti strada verso il boss finale. Gli scontri differiscono per luogo, fazione nemica, modificatori e condizioni di vittoria. Vabbè.
Vediamo cosa c'è qui.
Eh sì, vediamo. Allora, qui siamo al teatro praticamente, dove c'era la radio. Allora, questo non lo puoi fare niente praticamente. Banco da lavoro, secondo me tanto peggio. Niente, non puoi fare niente perché non hai niente, vabbè. È solo questo. Qua puoi scegliere i vari scenari, ma secondo me quelli, i primi due, ce ne sono 3 che puoi scegliere: Jackson eppure Office. Vabbè, per facilitarci le cose facciamo Jackson perché sarà più facile forse. perché Jackson ha gli spazi più larghi. Non ci dovrebbero essere impedimenti, non lo so, poi ora vediamo. Tipo di scontro in modalità assalto, gruppi di nemici attaccano a ondate, la loro conoscenza della tua posizione iniziale varia in base allo scontro, sfrutta gli intervalli tra le ondate per curarti e raccogliere scorte. Cassa di scorte, al termine di ogni ondata genera una cassa di scorte, una modalità di ascolto, vabbè, usa la modalità di ascolto, vabbè, assalto, respingi ogni ondata, auguri Ellie. Ah, qua prende risorse, prendi risorse che ne hai bisogno sicuramente. Sta per partire l'ondata. Stenditi a terra. Io non ho visto nessuno, tu hai visto qualcuno? Vabbè, così non ci sbrighiamo più. Ammazza, prendi la mazza. Ah! A terra! Modalità infiltrazione. Premi per creare strumenti. Vediamo che può creare. Intanto il kit medico. Oppure la Molotov. 6 colpi. Ah! Non ti alzare! Madonna, Ellie! Aspetta che lo freghiamo.
Nessuno ha visto niente? Sveglia, gente! Dove è andata?
Ah! Si sta girando! Allora, il primo l'abbiamo fottuto. Fa molto strano combattere dentro Jackson, perché succede solo nella parte 1, quando appena arrivati dobbiamo aiutare contro l'assalto, ma nella parte 2 non succede di combattere a Jackson e percepiamo Jackson come l'unico luogo sicuro. Oddio. Oddio. Quanti ce ne mancano? Ondata successiva. Aspetta, qua non puoi fare niente. Devi cercare munizioni. La prima ondata è andata. Aspetta, no! Ti stavi alzando. Ellie, ma cosa fai? Ce ne sono 2? Ah, mi sta vedendo! Sono girati. Cazzo, sì. Ah! Muoviti. Sta arrivando. Ah! Mi sta vedendo. Giro, giro tondo. Vediamo se casca il mondo, casca l'asino. Basta, basta, stai calma, Ellie, stai calma. Fatti una cura. È una molotov. Ok. Giù. Ah, è lì. Mi sta vedendo. Oddio. Come è girato? Non lo capisco. No! Cosa fai? Mi hai distratto! Via, via, via! Giù! Oh!
Cosa? Che c'è? È morto!
Dai! Scontro completato! La prima ondata l'abbiamo fatta, il primo scontro l'abbiamo vinto. Ritorno al rifugio, volevo prendermi delle scorte che ci potevano essere. Però non ho fatto caso alla salute, la stavo perdendo, eh. Ho preso una B. Dai, pensavo peggio, però potevo anche prendere una A volendo. Completamento scontro, vabbè, qua ci sono tutte le statistiche. Va bene, dai. Avanti. Ci teniamo questa B. Per iniziare non va affatto male una B. Pensavo molto peggio, in effetti. Pensavo di non poter muovere un passo, invece ho preso una B. Va bene. Allora, adesso le sfide attive sono visualizzate. Va bene. Continua. ricompensa e scontro. Dopo aver fatto il ritorno al rifugio, ricorda di acquisire le ricompense per lo scontro completato. Puoi usare... va bene. Accedi all'emporio. Vabbè, ci ricorda giustamente tutte le cose. Allora, dunque, aspetta. Ecco le ricompense, 40 pezzi, 55 integratori e la valuta. Intanto utilizziamo tutte queste cose. Allora, possiamo fare la cura e basta. Poi qua puoi fare le molotov migliorate, perché no? E basta. Vediamo questa. Di quest'altra no. Crea silenziatori, vabbè, queste non le puoi fare. Vabbè. Credo che forse puoi fare qualche potenziamento delle armi qua. E dunque, boh, vediamo questa. Crea, allora, cadenza di tiro, sostituisci la molla del cane per incrementare la cadenza di tiro. Oppure no, queste no. Questa sì. Rinculo installa un compensatore per ridurre il rinculo dell'arma. Oppure questa no. Facciamo la cadenza. Basta, non c'è altro. Ok. Dunque, adesso penso proprio che non possiamo fare altro e quindi continuiamo, facciamo un'altra ondata. Dunque, abbiamo fatto la prima e che infatti è tagliata adesso. Adesso ci rimane Shipping Yard e Office 1F. Tipo di scontro assalto, fazione nemica, infetti. Stavolta ci scontreremo con gli infetti. Avvio nemici, vabbè. Poi invece c'è questa, ufficio 1F, tipo di scontro caccia, fazione nemica Serafiti. Ah no, i Serafiti no. I Serafiti all'ultimo, quindi facciamo questa. Respingi ogni ondata, quindi cambia lo scenario. L'erba mi nasconderà? Tu intanto appiattisciti. Questa era zona di Abby nel gioco, che se non ricordo male era la zona in cui Abby lasciava Leve Yara. Ed era molto duro lo scontro con gli infetti, perché era una fase piuttosto avanzata di gioco. Sono clicker, quindi sono ciechi, ci puoi andare davanti. Però io preferisco comunque non farmi accerchiare, quindi li devi comunque isolare, perché i clicker se ti accerchiano ti vincono. E poi comunque girovagare è utile perché ti fa trovare risorse. Ah! Ah! A terra! A terra! Quello è un runner, quindi ti vede? Giù! Cioè, combatteremo come serpenti tutto il tempo. Perché è l'unico modo per non farsi quasi toccare. Che appena ci toccano la salute ce la tolgono subito. Ok, ondata successiva. Questa sembra andata benone perché non abbiamo perso neanche un po' di salute, Però non ci illudiamo perché... È un runner! Ah! Stronza! Ai! Aia! Perché non spari, Ellie? Fai qualcosa! Maledizione, spara! Curati! Oddio! Non ho capito più niente! Sì, perché dovevo curarmi e non era il momento. Quindi ora che succede? Morire in senza ritorno. In senza ritorno la morte è permanente, le armi, gli oggetti potenzialmente acquisiti si ripristinano dopo la conclusione. La mappa viene generata casualmente, è possibile sbloccare in modo permanente nuovi personaggi e funzionali completando le sfide. E quindi... Vabbè, ovviamente siamo morti. Ci sta. E questa B? Era quella di prima, forse? E quindi, cosa dice qua? Gioca una partita, gioca due partite. Vabbè. Partita personalizzata. Nuova funzionalità. Le partite personalizzate permettono di modificare le regole di senza ritorno. È possibile intervenire su modalità di gioco, nemici, modificatori e altro ancora. Questa opzione è disponibile all'avvio di una nuova partita. E quindi Vediamo, allora, nuova partita, sfide, intanto guardiamo queste sfide. Boss, sì, ma se noi... Secondo me è prematuro per fare, pensare ma le sfide si sbloccheranno automaticamente quando ti capiterà di sbloccarle casualmente. Ok, quindi classifica, record locali, record personali, vabbè, comunque non è il momento di pensare alle classifiche. E nuova partita. Partita standard, partita personalizzata e partita giornaliera. Partita personalizzata. E le partite, vabbè, continua. Vediamo. Dunque, molto facile. E poi meccaniche, nemici, modificatori più che altro mi interessano. Modificatori, vediamo cosa mi fa mettere. Modificatori, numero massimo di moltiplicatori, filtri fotografici, bombe rilasciate dai nemici in punto di morte. Ripristino energia con uccisioni in mischia. Tempo rallentato, questi qua sono bloccati. Vabbè, quindi praticamente non c'è niente da modificare. Sblocca temporaneamente tutte le formule, è bloccato. Cioè, ovviamente le cose più interessanti magari saranno per adesso bloccate. Gli attacchi in mischia, bonus danni colpo, vabbè, comunque. Tempo limite, pioggia di Molotov. Niente, non modifichiamo niente perché non credo che... Nemici, vediamo nemici. Fazioni, VLF, Serafiti, Serpi, Infetti, Boss, Blotter, Infestazione nel teatro, Capitano delle Serpi, Blotter del parcheggio, Hit di Serafiti, Re dei Ratti, eh, Cani, Infetti, vabbè. Comunque alcuni sono, la maggior parte è tutta roba bloccata, quindi in ogni caso fazione, tipi di nemici, no aspetta, fazioni, VLF sì, Serafiti, vabbè lasciali tutti, Serpi sono bloccate, infetti, vabbè lasciali tutti, inutile che... Niente, non modifichiamo niente, non... Seleziona personaggio. C'è la selezione del personaggio. Quindi poi... Hai solo Ellie per adesso. Niente. Vediamo che ore sono, vediamo che ore abbiamo fatto, le 12:39. Abbiamo poco tempo, ma lo utilizziamo tutto quello che abbiamo, poi casomai interrompo. Tanto non penso che dopo oggi, non penso che streamerò altre volte la modalità senza ritorno. Poi eventualmente me la completerò da sola per sbloccare i trofei, ma sinceramente il gioco è più interessante e più pieno della modalità senza ritorno, che comunque è abbordabile ed è anche piacevole cercare di sbloccare altri trofei aggiungendo materiale di gioco. Quindi hanno fatto bene comunque a farla la modalità roguelike. Comunque. La prossima volta che streameremo passeremo al gioco principale che già conosciamo, ma voglio farlo nella versione PS5, quindi eh, lo, eh, già da oggi pomeriggio credo a partire dalle 4 in poi, ho capito, sto spegnendo. A partire dalle 4 in poi riprenderemo, ma dal gioco principale, quindi seguiremo la storia e tutto quanto. Quindi se vi interessa questo contenuto, iscrivetevi, lasciate mi piace, seguite questa serie. Per il momento è tutto, arrivederci al prossimo video e buona domenica.